trusted on the roads with a bicycle. I used to go over and if Mother needed a loaf of bread or a quart of milk or whatever from the grocery store, she'd send me over to pick it up on the bike. So I remember.
Where'd you get it from?
The Hall store.
Gotcha.
Hall store right at the bottom of the hill. And I can remember going down the we call it the Wood Hill, down by the Wood Hotel on
right.
the right.
Yeah.
And they have a name for every part of the road, you know. And so I'd go to the Hall store on my bicycle and pick up whatever I had to pick up and spend a few minutes talking with Bud and Jack maybe and Mary. I can't, let's see, it was Mary? Yeah, the daughter. But anyway, they had 3 children at that time. And Bud was a little older and Jack was a little younger, so I fit in there pretty good with them. We did a lot of things, played a lot of ball together, and football and baseball.
Do you remember a toboggan slide
Yes.
over the highway?
Yeah.
When was that roughly? Or
That was built
30s?
in the low 30s, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
30, I'd say 34 probably. They finished it. It was all built of wood and trussed up, and it had 2 slides on it, 2 tracks on it, like where you put your toboggan in and came down off there. And they had it all lit up so at night you could see the slide there. It went right out on the lake, right where the boat launch is now. And so it was quite a drop off. It was raised up pretty high, you know, where you started off, and a little platform up on top where you could get on the canoe or get on the toboggan, and somebody would give you a shove and away you'd go. And wind up out in the lake quite a ways on the ice. And that was a big attraction. And it was also ice hockey rink where right in front of where the generating building was that had the generators in it for the power company. And so they'd have the doors unlocked so we could go in there to get warm if it got cold, or to put your skates on or whatever. And somebody is always shoveling that rink every time it snowed, so the banks would build up around it so you could set up on the snow banks and watch the hockey games. And they had strings of lights over the hockey rink so that they could play at night. And I can remember going over there and watching hockey games. They had a pretty good team from Inlet, and they used to invite teams in from other towns all through the Adirondacks and down the Mohawk Valley.
Where did they play this again? Where did they play it?
Well, it was right on the hockey rink in front of the power company building, right about where
the Frontier building is?
Yeah, right behind where the Frontier building is.
Okay.
And so I can remember that when they had some of those players that were on the Inlet team were from Canada, and local people would put them up. I can remember them staying at our house, a couple of them, and they couldn't hardly speak English. You know, they spoke French, so they must have been from Quebec province up there in Canada. And anyway, and they could really play hockey. I'll tell you, we go over the next day and there'd be a lot of blood on the ice.
Wasn't from deer.
They were tough. They didn't worry about it too much.
When you came back from the war, did you notice a difference in Inlet from before you went to war?
Yes, it was much different. For one thing, during the war, people couldn't get gas enough to really come up on vacation unless they had a camp up there or something. So you wouldn't see any tourists motoring through much, even on weekends or holiday weekends. But that all changed when the war ended, and Inlet began to get a lot of tourists coming through, and new camps being built, and that was a busy place in those days. A lot of the contractors expanded and hired more people, and Larry Payne went in the business, a building business, and opened up a lumber yard where you could go up and buy lumber and paint supply.
Is that what's now Levy Lumber Company today?
Well, he had his set up just after you go by. Let's see, it's his old homestead. It's just opposite the golf course on
Yeah.
Limekill Road.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but it was where Larry had built a house, and he put in lumber racks and stuff and buildings out behind his house, and so he had a lot of lumber stored there and building supplies, and he had a lot of people working for him, building camps, and there were several other. Charlie Dunn from Big Moose did a lot of work on the post office in Inlet, and I worked for some of those guys during that first few years before I could get back on a regular job. You know, I worked part-time for Charlie Dunn on the Inlet Post Office, I know, and we were...
What had to be done there?
Well, that building was built, had a lot of brickwork on it, and I don't know what you call the mortar around the bricks was just deteriorating pretty bad.
It's from 1927, yeah.
Was it 1920? So, let's see, this was probably in 47 or 48, that would be 20 years after, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So, I remember I worked with, I'm trying to think of some of the names of people that I worked with up there, and they were doing the mason work. I didn't do the mason work, I just tended the masons, so.
Gave them what they needed.
Get them what they needed. If they needed more mud, I'd mix up more and haul it up the ladder to them. And of course, I just worked as a part-time man for him, so when that job was finished, I was done, you know. And
So that was before you
that's
and your brother
yes, before we
set
went
up there at the
Well,
garage.
Oh, it was about the same time.
Okay.
So, yeah. I'd say it was in 48 maybe, or 47, right along about the same time when my trucking work started to fall off a little bit. Charlie talked me into going up there and working with him, so. And I didn't mind. I thought it was a great job, you know. It was right there in town and close to home, only a mile from the house. So, but after that, I worked on the town highway department for, I guess I started off plowing in the wintertime, and then the job went on into the spring and summer, and then we had to stockpile sand for the winter, and so.
Now, is this after or before you and Bob had the garage?
That's afterward.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this was after the garage went to the
Yeah.
Legion? Right.
Yeah, they went to the Legion post, and I was involved with that too, with the Legion. Ted Payne was very active in that, and I think Ted did some of the work, putting in petitions and things in the garage and making it so we could heat it in the wintertime. And we had all our meetings in there for a long time. Well, the Legion post started out to be in Racket Lake,
Right.
but then they kind of lost interest, I think, up in Racket. We couldn't keep enough members interested to make it worthwhile for us to drive up there for all the meetings. And so I remember Lansing Tiffany and Ray Cope and myself, and there were just a handful of guys that would go up there every meeting night, and nobody would show up from up there. So we felt like, gee, you know, this is a waste of time. We could be putting our time in down there. So that's when Keith offered us that building to use that. And so then we...
How did the idea for the ambulance squad come?
Oh, that was an interesting thing. The first ambulance that they had in Inlet was furnished by the Red Cross. And the Red Cross I don't know how their government, how they're set up, but somebody up in Lake Pleasant, apparently, or up in Blue Mountain, somewhere's up in the other end of the county, had charge of the Red Cross ambulance, and they got a chance to take one of their cars and keep it in Inlet during the summer, because they were getting a lot of calls from up there for people in Inlet to go to the hospital. So, so my dad and I don't know who else, probably several guys from Inlet, the hotel man and stuff, got into it and had it brought down to Inlet, and they kept it in that garage of Keith's. And Hollis Ross, and I'm trying to think of the principal drivers. My dad drove quite a lot, and I think Keith House, or Keith Bierman, and I've got, in fact, I have the original book from that ambulance, where they used to register their trips, where they were going, who they took out, and who was driving, and everything.
You still have that?
I've got it here somewhere, so I should have looked that up before you came down. But I'll see that you get it, if you'd like to have it.
Sure.
I meant to bring it up the night that I...
That's right, you showed up last year.
Yeah. But,
Nice surprise, by the way.
yeah. But anyway, the Legion post really took off then. We had some really active members, and that you could depend on. And of course we had so many trips to make right away, quick. I mean, what happened was, with the Red Cross ambulance, it was a Packard, and it wasn't too old. It was still running good, but the way it operated was whoever drove it had instructions to leave it off at my mother's house when they got back with the trip, and she would do the linens, wash the linens, and get everything fixed up for the next trip, you know. So they left it there in our yard when they got back on 7 o'clock in the morning or so, and in those days you didn't think you had to lock everything up, you know, and so somebody stole the ambulance, and they didn't find it. They found it up around Tupper Lake, and it was on a rock pile that had been smashed right up to, you know, the guy, whoever stole it, probably doing high speeds up across between Tupper Lake and Saranac, and smashed it all up. And so we got together as a Legion post, because it used to be stationed, it was parked in where we were meeting, you know, and so we felt pretty close to it. And so we decided maybe we should try to buy an ambulance. So we looked into it and found a place down in Herkimer, I think it was, that sold used ambulances. And a couple of the guys went down there and talked to them down there, and we wound up buying a used ambulance from them so that we'd have something that summer to finish up. And so the Legion post went into the ambulance business right down there. And we bought used ones at first, and then we raised enough money so that they could get something newer, and that went on from there. But nowadays, I guess the fire department has it, and they're doing a good job with it. So
You were mentioning the garage at South Shore Road. Had you operated that at some point?
yes, in 1952, I think it was 52 or 54.
Is that at the Gerlach? After Lloyd Gerlach?
Yeah, Lloyd Gerlach. Lloyd contacted me a couple of times, and that he was interested in selling. Of course, he leased the building from Marks and Wilcox, and or rented it, one or the other, and he was interested in just selling us his stock, and he was going to open a boat livery over across the inlet.
Right.
And so it was nothing but a sandbank in there then. There were no buildings in there. So,
Is that where the inlet marina is?
that's where the
Okay.
marina is, yeah, he built that. What he did, he got a contract with the state highway department. He sold them sand out of the sandbank down there. They sent a guy up and checked it out, and it said it was good sand to use for sanding the road. So he sold a lot of that out of there. That so he didn't have to move to build his building. And then after they dug most of his sand out, he put up that first little building and then some storage buildings later. But and then I guess Charlie Thibodeau bought it from Lloyd a few years later.
Because he had a place in Eagle Bay.
Yeah,
Thibodeau, yeah.
Charlie did. Yeah, he lived over there. But I remember going back to the Thibodeaus. I remember the night their house burned up on Sixth Lake, and they all got out of it in good shape, but the house was pretty well gutted out when the fire was finally put out. And they built another house right away, so Henry was a local contractor for people on the 6th and 7th Lake. He was well known up there. And
When you mentioned the ambulance squad, were you involved with the rescue of the pilot on Fourth Lake?
yes,
Can you tell a little bit about that?
yeah, I'll be glad to. Yeah, my brother and I were in the garage working at, I think it was on either a Saturday or Sunday.
Which one?
Yeah, I'm trying to think which one.
Was it South Shore or over by Keith's?
Oh, the one on the South Shore Road,
Okay.
corner of the main road in South Shore.
Right. That's right, it's in the late 50s, right?
And Harold Scott lived down on the canal, or on the inlet,
Yeah.
right behind the garage.
Right behind the post office building.
Yeah.
His property was
Yeah.
there.
And we were in there working, and Bob and I were the only ones in the garage working that day. We had some people working for us, but they weren't in there that day, so that makes me think it was a weekend. And we heard this plane go over. Well, I mean down low. He was low. And it was snowing hard at the time. So anyway, just about that time, Harold Scott come running into the garage. He said, "Did you hear that plane go over?" I said, "Yeah, we did." Of course, we're in there making noises, drilling and everything else, so we didn't hear it real clear. And he said, it sounded to me like he hit the ice. He said the engine went off just like that. Just then the phone rang, and in our office, so I went and answered it, and it was, I think it was Skip Ponder, who was working for Archie Delmarsh at the Rocky Point Hotel. And he said, an airplane just cracked up on the ice out here. And it was in the spring, and I didn't know how much ice there was. There was a lot of open water around the edge, you know. And so Skip said, I said, we'll be right over with the ambulance. Would you like some more?
I'm good. No, I'm good.
No, I'm all right.
Let's talk about you.
No, I'm all right. So anyway, he said, we'll get a boat out. He said, I think you ought to drag a boat out on the ice, just in case. I said, good idea. So Bob and I went down, jumped in the ambulance. It was down parked in Keith's garage there, where we used to be in business, and ran out over there, the Rocky Point, and jumped out of it and went down to, they were pulling a boat out of the boathouse and out on the ice towards inlet. And there was open water, maybe 6-8 feet out from the shore, that was open, you know. At least it looked like it was. But there were rocks in there that you could, if you were careful, you could walk out on the rocks and get in the boat. Well, what we did was, we each stood alongside the outside edge of the boat and just skidded it out. We could see the plane between the snow flurries, you know. It was all bunched up in a heap. And so there was Skip Ponder, Harry Delmarsh, Oh, the other guy up on the South Shore Road. I can't think of his name. Is that the picture of it?
I've got it on my computer.
Yeah. Uh, Gordy Rudd and I haven't got his name here, but anyway, there was 6 of us involved in the rescue. Harry, myself, Skip Ponder, this other fellow from the South Shore Road, and Bob, and Gordy Rudd came out. He's the last one came out, and he took the most, I thought it was the most dangerous way out, right across the channel almost, in front of Peter's cottages, you know, where they are. And that's open a lot of the winter in there from the channel coming around
Right.
in current. But he got out through all right. He got out there to give us a hand. But by the time he got out there, we had gotten to the airplane, and the guy was still in the seat. The pilot was still in the seat, but the canopy was completely gone, and the tail was all crunched up, and you didn't have to worry about finding him. He was sitting right there, and that wind was blowing right in his face, and he was not fully conscious. He'd been hit in the face pretty hard with I think he hit the dash, or else the canopy hit his face as it went off. But anyway, we tried to question him if there was anybody else in the plane, because there was nobody else appeared to be in it. And up the isoways we could see the parachute. And he apparently had a spare parachute on the back seat or something, and it must have flown out and opened up, and it was spread out, you know, and we thought, well, maybe somebody had jumped out. But no, he said he was alone. So we wrapped him up in the parachute to try to keep him a little bit warm, and put him in the boat, and the rest of us each grabbed the side of the boat, and away we went for shore. And of course we had the ambulance at Rocky Point, so we took him over there, and by the time we got over there, Hollis Ross and a few of the other guys had come down there, and they'd heard about it and come down. So they took over driving the ambulance, and we just put him in the back on a stretcher, and took him up to Dr. Warwick's house, up on top of the hill and inlet there.
I think he's in the picture. Warwick.
Yeah, we've got a picture here of him, and the Dr. Warwick and the general from Fort Drum, and the rest of us, Gordy Rudd and Harry Delmarsh. And so he survived. We heard from him about 3 weeks later. He thanked all of us for coming over there and getting him out of the airplane. The general that summer called up, let's see, I'm trying to think of the names of John Rogers was a member of the Legion post, and I think he was commander that year, as I recall. And the general from Fort Drum called John, because he was a retired Army officer. He probably realized that. And he got a hold of John and said, how about bringing your post guys over here that made this rescue, and we're going to have a parade and honor them, you know, at the post. And John said, you know, we're all in a tourist business over here, and to ask all these fellows to leave inlet, there won't be enough people left here to do, you know, to run their businesses. So he said, well, we'll come to them. So so they made arrangements. They asked us to look for a field big enough to get his helicopter in, the general's helicopter. So we went and looked over and said, gee, I wonder if with a helicopter you ought to be able to get into the Wood Hotel garden up there, you know, right alongside the road. And so we suggested that to them, and they said, well, they're going to send the observation plane up and look it over. And see what they thought. So they come back with the idea that they couldn't get into that little field with that big helicopter. So but they could land up at the golf course if we could get permission there. So that's what we did. We got permission from the golf course, and they landed on the #1 fairway there.
It's a great story.
Yeah.
After your time at the garage, was it just you or you and Bob at the garage?
Bob stayed, the two of us were there for about 10 years together in business, yeah. And then I stayed on another 4 years, or 4 or 5. I think I was there about 15 years altogether. And I think 1970 is that's when I moved out of there.
So did you move out of Inlet then, or?
Yeah, I was living in Eagle Bay, so I moved to Eagle Bay.
Okay.
Put a shop up over in Eagle Bay to do my, I was doing mostly chainsaws and lawnmowers and small engine stuff.
What's in that location today? Do you know?
Where in Eagle Bay?
Yeah.
Somebody has bought it and turned it into a residence, a summer residence.
Okay.
And yeah, I don't know who he is, who's got it now. But that was, then I moved to Old Forge, and now I'm living down here in Woodgate.
Now, if you were to turn back the clock and ride your bike down the streets of Inlet again, just before the war, what are the stores and businesses you can remember seeing?
Well, let's see.
Just go right on down the street if you'd
Right
like.
on down, so there were no businesses until you got down to Berkowitz's had that store where was it Historical Society?
Yeah, right, the Inlet Toggery.
Yeah, right on the left-hand side, just before you get to where Searles had the garage.
Right. Where did you ever go in there?
Yes.
What kind of stuff did he sell in there?
They sell all clothing from, they had a store like it in Old Forge, and I'd been in there, and of course, and so when they, Jaime Berkowitz, I believe, ran that store in Inlet, and he was quite a guy. Jaime was he was a nice guy, but
What do you mean? What do you mean? Character?
he was.
Did his kids also run it? Do you remember anything like that? If they had apartments upstairs, or?
They had apartments upstairs, but I don't remember any
Okay.
children being.
I meant adult children. That's what I meant. Okay.
Oh.
Yeah.
Because I think Jaime, I don't know if he was ever married.
Okay.
He had a sister
Okay.
that took over the Old Forge store eventually,
Okay.
and
I'm sorry, I interrupted you. What kind of stuff did you see there?
and then well, you know, the first one that I still see it, and it brings back memories when I came by there the other day, was Roberts's, where they lived up on the hill there. That was a fairly new home, but I guess Emmett built. I'm
Yeah,
not
Emmett
sure.
bought it from Philo Wood back in the
Yeah.
30s. And was it their son that died in the war?
Yes, it was Emmett.
Emmett
Emmett's
Jr.
son.
Yeah.
Charlie.
Yeah.
And we were great friends. Charlie and Bob and I used to have a lot of fun together. And then of course he went in the Navy, and when he was home on leave, and we spent some time with him then too, before he went back and went down in the Atlantic Ocean. He spent a lot of time in Solomon Islands, you know, over in the Pacific. His destroyer was over there and served in a lot of those landings, you know, as a backup on the same destroyer. And then they got over in the Atlantic, and I guess they got into some rough weather,
Yeah.
and they lost almost the whole crew. But he was a nice guy. That was a nice family, Roberts' family. And Charlie's older sister became a teacher.
Is that Ruth?
Ruth, I don't know where she worked, but I don't think she ever taught in Inlet School. But of course, Roy Rogers' daughter, Emma, was a teacher when I was in school there. I think she taught first grade, maybe kindergarten and first grade. But then later on, the Puffer daughter there worked there as a teacher. And Roy Rogers' son, John, was a principal at school when I was in my 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And he taught mathematics and general science and a lot of stuff there. He was a pretty good teacher, yeah, I thought. Very good. In fact, he taught us algebra in 8th grade, which is kind of unusual in those times. You usually didn't see algebra until you got to high school.
Mm-hmm.
So I was a leg up on all the math students down there when I went down there. I claimed to be smart, but I just had been through it all once and I knew it. So anyway, but my time at inlet school went really fast. I thought, I mean, I wish I could get back there and remember it all, but we had some great times there. And I thought as a school in a small town, you couldn't do any better.
I've heard a lot of people say that. It needs a gym when you got the outdoors.
Yeah.
So crossing past Berkowitz is what did you see next?
Well, then you see the garage next that Elwood. When I first could remember anything, it was Elwood was in there. Elwood Searle.
Right, right.
And then afterwards, somebody brought in that what looked like an old railroad car or something and put it there.
The diner?
The diner.
Right, that might have been the people from United that had it for like 4 years.
Uh-huh.
So, I told you, Aldous, A-L-D-O-U-S, I think.
Aldous. Oh,
Aldous,
yeah.
yeah. And then after 4 years, that's when that other family got it for 2 years before they had an accident.
Uh-huh.
Keith was a little later. So you're saying it was a car that they brought in instead of a building?
Well, I
diner.
don't know what it was. It looked like it.
It looked like that, yeah. Okay.
But anyway, and then of course the pharmacy in the next building across the driveway there, by Pascal Gilson ran that, and the theater was going. Mendy Schumann's father, his first name escapes me.
Mars or Mendel?
Mendel.
Mendel.
Yeah, Mendel Schumann. Yeah, that was a great family. They ran a nice. They came up with some ideas there when they ran the theater. Mendy would go up there and they'd have games, you know, for the kids to play, or even all the adults too. And to make it more interesting, I think, and that was a tragedy really when it burned. And then they had, for a while we had outdoor theater. You sat out in the same seats.
Do you remember the fire? I think
Yeah.
you were back